Today, we are diving deep into the amazing, invisible systems that keep your body in a constant, delicate balancing act. Seriously, every single second of every day, your body is fighting a nonstop battle against a changing world just to keep you, well, you.
I mean, you know the feeling, right? That totally automatic shiver that runs up your spine when you step out into the cold. Or how about when you start to sweat on a hot day? It might feel kind of random, but it is anything but. That's your body's first line of defense in its constant fight for stability.
The best way to think about it is like a super smart thermostat in your house. It's always sensing the temperature, always making these little adjustments to keep things just right, no matter what chaos is happening outside. And this process, it's absolutely fundamental to life itself. And yeah, that process has a name: homeostasis. It's a huge core principle in all of biology. It's the incredible mechanism that keeps a living system's internal world, your blood sugar, your temperature, all of it, within the super narrow limits it needs to survive. But how does it actually work? Okay, so how can we actually see this in action? Well, let's follow along with a group of students as they put this very idea to the test. They're investigating a claim that gets right to the heart of how our bodies manage to stay in control. So this was their central claim. They wanted to find real evidence that our bodies use these things called feedback mechanisms to control the temperature of both our core, where our vital organs are, and our extremities, like our hands and our feet.
All right, so how would you even begin to test a claim like that? You can't just guess, right? You need a solid plan. And in science, that plan is the scientific method, which is all about designing a focused, repeatable experiment. So the students followed a really clear plan. They took that big claim and turned it into a specific question. Then they made a prediction, a hypothesis, about what they'd find. They designed a careful, step-by-step procedure. And then, the most important part, they got to work collecting the data. So here's the basic setup. They introduced a change, a stimulus. In this case, plunging a hand into a bath of cold water. That's their independent variable. It's the one thing they're changing on purpose. Then, they measured the body's reaction, the dependent variable, by tracking the temperature of both the hand and the forehead, using a really precise, non-contact thermometer. Now, here's the key. They didn't just take one measurement and call it a day. The whole point was to track the temperature over time. They got a baseline reading before the cold water, checked it again right after, and then kept measuring as the body started to recover. This timeline is absolutely crucial if you want to actually see the body's feedback system kick in. And what did they find? Well, across all their experiments, a super clear pattern emerged. The hand's temperature, predictably, dropped way down after being in the cold water. But then, over the next few minutes, it started to gradually climb back up, heading right back towards its original starting temperature. They had actually captured evidence of the body returning to its set point. Okay, so the data clearly shows the body correcting itself. But what's the actual mechanism behind that? What's going on under the hood? This is where we get into the biology of the feedback loop itself. This chart shows the two sides of the coin perfectly. If you get too hot, your nervous system sends signals that cause your capillaries to dilate or widen to release heat, and your sweat glands kick on. The result, your body temperature goes down. Get too cold, the exact opposite happens. Your capillaries constrict to conserve heat, and your muscles start to shiver to generate more. This whole process is a textbook example of negative feedback. Now, the key word here is negative, but it doesn't mean bad. It means opposite. The body's response counteracts the initial change. If you get hot, the body works to cool you down. If you get cold, it works to warm you up. The goal is always, always to get back to that stable set point. Now, to really appreciate just how important negative feedback is for keeping you stable, it really helps to compare it to its counterpart, positive feedback. Here's the difference in a nutshell. Negative feedback is all about balance. It's like your body hitting the brakes to push back against a change. Positive feedback is the total opposite. It's an amplifier. It's like hitting the gas. It takes a small change and makes it bigger and bigger and bigger, pushing a process forward until a job is complete. A perfect, real-world example of positive feedback is blood clotting. Imagine you get a cut. Platelets rush to the site and start releasing chemicals. Now, these chemicals don't stop the process, no. They call in for backup. They attract even more platelets, which release more chemicals, creating this rapid snowball effect that seals the wound incredibly fast. It amplifies the response until the danger has passed. And this is where you can see just how critical these loops are. In a condition like hemophilia, some of those crucial clotting factors are missing. That positive feedback loop is broken. The amplification process just fails. And that makes the whole system dangerously unstable. A small cut can become a life-threatening problem.
But hey, this whole balancing act, it's not just for us animals. Plants are absolute masters of homeostasis too, even though their methods look pretty different from ours.
I mean, they don't shiver or sweat, but they have their own incredibly sophisticated system. They regulate their internal state using these tiny little pores on their leaves called stomata. They can open or close them to perfectly control how much gas gets in and how much water gets out.
So check this out. Look at how they respond to temperature. At a nice, moderate temperature, the stomata are mostly open, letting in all the carbon dioxide they need for photosynthesis. But when it gets really hot, they close up tight. Why? To prevent the plant from losing too much water and drying out. It's a clever trade-off, all to maintain balance.
And they do the exact same thing with light. In the dark, there's no point in being open. There's no light for photosynthesis, right? So the stomata close. But as the light gets brighter, they open wider and wider to maximize their energy production. It's another brilliant feedback mechanism hard at work. So from your own hand recovering from the shock of cold water to the tiny pores on a leaf making a calculated decision, this constant balancing act is happening all around us and inside us. It's not just some neat biological curiosity. It is the fundamental difference between a living system that's healthy and thriving and one that's failing.
So what's the big picture here? What should you take away from all this? Well, there are 3 huge points. First, these feedback loops aren't just important, they are pretty much the definition of being alive. Second, if you think about almost any disease, at its very core, it's a failure of homeostasis. And finally, and this is the exciting part, this is where the future of medicine is. It's all about understanding how to step in and help restore that balance when our own bodies can't.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating final question to chew on. Our bodies are built with these incredible self-regulating systems. But as we understand them more and more deeply, we're developing the power to not just mend them, but maybe even enhance them. So as our technology gets better and better at tipping the scales back in our favor, what does that future look like?